بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Um, so I left you all with a reflection homework from Surah An-Naml. What do y'all come up with? Y'all even think about it? No? Wow. Oh, you had your hand up? I thought you were saying like, oh, I don't even remember it.
We asked us to put ourselves into the person, and there's an ayah that said something like, do you offer me wealth, Allah, and grant me something far greater?
Okay.
For me, what you were kind of saying, like, put yourself like materially much worse off than their enemy. And so this ayah was kind of saying, like, wealth doesn't matter, and there's something far more important, which I was understanding that as Iman. And so that's kind of like empowering those believers who are materially weak. Through this example where things in my time was feeling empowered against the thing that would be really bigger.
Okay. I would actually argue that what Sulaiman meant was the wealth that Allah has given me is greater than the wealth that Allah has given you. Right? But the way he presents it is in my trust is in Allah. I trust that Allah will give me what I need in order to deal with you. Okay. What else, guys? Adam, you had your hand up. You had your hand up.
Yeah, it's Isa.
Isa, I'm so sorry.
So there's one area where he says, there's when Sulaiman saw it set before him, he said, "This is a favor from my Lord to test whether I'm grateful or not. If anyone is grateful, it is for his own good. If anyone is ungrateful, then my Lord is self-sufficient and most generous." So like throughout these verses, he's constantly remembering Allah, praising Allah, saying how Allah is sufficient for him.
Okay.
And even though he's, I guess, materially successful, that's just a reminder to the believers that of what's most important.
Okay. What else?
Maybe like that that story, which almost seems like the opposite situation of the Muslims at the time in Mecca, is kind of showing them that I mean, it's kind of similar to what Isa said, but like it's showing them that it's not about your like you could be in this position, you could be in that. There's a test from Allah in both of them, but it's almost interesting that it's like a very opposite situation of the Muslims in that time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the prophet with the greatest kingdom, and he has the control over most things.
Okay. So on that point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may be building this mindset in the believers of what success really is. And it's not what made Suleiman successful wasn't the fact that he had all the power and wealth, but rather that he understood that power and wealth from a theological side, from the side of what does this mean from the lens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And this is a big challenge, by the way. And when somebody's born and raised in a certain circumstance, they acclimate. But when that circumstance changes, will they also acclimate as well? How will that affect them? Okay. So put yourself in the mind of an oppressor, right? Put yourself in the mind of Fir'aun and the likes, right? And Fir'aun is afraid, and by the way, this is the fear of all elites. SubhanAllah, this is the fear of all elites, that somebody else will come and take over. Right? The billionaires, their biggest fear is some new guy, new lady, new hot shot will come and just build a better company. Right? So put yourself in that mindset, and he's going after Bani Israel. Like what are the things you're going to want to prevent them from?
Men. Men.
Men?
I mean, he was trying to kill their men so they wouldn't. You're talking about Fir'aun or?
Put yourself in the mind of Fir'aun. Right? You have this objective, you have this fear that somebody from this group is going to dethrone you. And you want to prevent that from happening.
Kill their men.
Yeah, that's what he literally did, right? But why?
So they couldn't grow up to be.
So they, okay.
Keep them like psychologically enslaved, feeling inferior.
Okay.
Systems of domination.
Okay. If you're living in a society where every other year your babies are being killed, what is not going to be on your mind? Safety, stability, a better future, a dream. So the oppressors killed the dreams of the society, killed the prospects of even having a dream, having an idea, hey man, I want to do this, I want to be this. By putting them in a circumstance that's so confined, so limited, that they can only focus on, scraping by. They're so demoralized that they can't even consider a better opportunity for themselves. Right? Now, here you have a story of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing the believers what they could be. Hey, this is one of your guys here, Sulaiman. This is one of your peeps. Right? And so perhaps one of the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing for the believers, for the companions, is showing them what they can be. A vision of what they could build. Thus creating the dream. And with the dream comes hope. And with hope comes choice. Right? Comes a reason to fight. Had the ummah today, had we believed that Palestine is gone, Jerusalem is gone, we wouldn't be fighting for it. But it's because you have these verses in the Quran that say it's coming back, that everybody fights for it. All right. So you brought up all valid points, right? This one I thought was very interesting. It's as though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them a story for them just to imagine themselves in the same circumstance. How? By showing somebody who is of them. Sulaiman alayhi salam. Right? I don't know if I've already shared this with you, but when you look at sports, did I share this with you all? When you look at sports and you ask, who are the best basketball players? Where are they from? What country are they from? America, right? Like to the extent that when the Olympics happen or whatever sports events happen, like why do you guys even try? When there are sports teams in other countries, it's a blowout all the time. All the best basketball players are from America. What about soccer players? Some will say Brazil, some will say whatever, right? But there's a place where there's the best soccer players tend to come out of, and then other sports, right? Isn't that it can't be a coincidence. It can't be a coincidence that constantly you're finding the best sports player of a particular sport are all coming from the same area. And so researchers looked into this. Why is this happening? It's repeated. Like you have multiple examples. Why? And what they came to is the following. They said because from that country a star rose, right? Someone from that country became the best at that sport, inspiring everybody else simply because, oh, he's like me, I'm like him, right? So when you have Sulaiman, he's a believer, always saying, Allah, Allah's testing me. This is for Allah. Let's check this out. This isn't, Sulaiman's not painted as a ethnicity. He's not an ethnicity. He is a person of Iman. And so when you read, even today, when we read his story, and somebody comes and say Solomon is is a Jew, say, he's a Muslim. We take that offensively. See what I mean? No, this guy's one of us, not one of you. Right? So this is kind of one example of how putting yourself, understanding the Meccan scenario, understanding that mindset, understanding the challenges can expose certain elements of the Quran that you're not going to get from reading it, right? You have to get from reflecting over the time when Allah sent it. Allahu alam. All right. So last time we began the Medinan era. So like what we did with the Meccan era, we're gonna try to better understand the terrain and the realities of Medina. We just said a few things about it last time. One, that it was called Yathrib. What does Yathrib mean? Destruction, perishment, right? A place of doom. And why was it called that?
The Compton of Arabia.
It was the Compton of Arabia, right? This is where the gangs were. This is where the wars were. This is where the bloodshed were. This is where, these are the neighborhoods you don't want to enter. This is where you find Skid Row, right? In terms of the geographical terrain, it was farmlands, agriculture. So the Ansar were farmers, right? There were a lot of palm trees, and that's significant here in a moment. And then the land they were living in was a little bit slummed, where there's in one direction it just ascends, in another direction it descends. Right? And then the social situation is very different than Mecca. Remember, Mecca is Quraysh, and Quraysh is basically a tribe under which are many clans. You had the Hashimi clan, you had the Banu Khuzaima, Banu whatever, right? So Quraysh is a tribe, and under that tribe are a bunch of clans.
Sheikh, sorry to interrupt. Can you share your screen?
Don't tell me this cord's not working either. I was just comparing myself before kids and after kids, and the difference. This would never happen before kids. I didn't even realize, I'm sitting there writing and thinking I'm projecting, hooked it up. And so, and now this cord isn't working. Come on. Cord isn't working. I don't know what's wrong with the cord. Anyway, so let's follow along. So Quraysh is a tribe under which are many clans, which essentially means everybody in Mecca is related to each other. They all meet at a great grandfather, right? And tribalism, as we went over, there are certain cultural practices, social practices that come with tribalism. That is, you don't give up one of your own, right? You don't attack one of your own. You don't harm one of your own. And when they began to oppress the Muslims, I mean, they completely went against their tribal code that they so much honored. Like today, we find them going against Western values when it comes to the question of Palestine or the question of Muslims, right? Human rights go out the door. Everything goes out the door. You have these double standards as well. Medina, on the other hand, it's not, tribalism still there, but it's not as unified. In Medina, you had the Arabs, right? And the Arabs were two primary tribes, Aus and Khazraj. There you go. Everything's falling apart. Now, you had Aus and Khazraj. They're the Arabs who were polytheists. And then you had Jews. All right. These Jews are foreigners, not like first generation immigrants, but they're not from Arabia. So they had a little bit of a accent, let's put it that way. Hence, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about or refutes the claim that the Prophet was taught, قَدْ نَعْلَمُ إِنَّ Surah Al-Nahl. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they accuse you that you are learning this from someone, meaning the Jews. You're going to the Jews and they're teaching you and you're learning this stuff from them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds and says, لِسَانُ الَّذِي يُلْحِدُونَ إِلَيْهِ أَعْجَمِيٌّ. The people who are teaching, the people you accuse him of learning from, they don't speak pure Arabic like you. This Quran is pure Arabic, right? So the Jews aren't from Arabia, but they've been living there. Now, in our world today of this is the place of the chosen land of Jews, and this is where Jews belong. God promised us this land. Why are you here? Right? This is one of the refutations today. If this is the land where Jews are meant to be, it's been open to the Jews for 1,400 years under Muslims. Why didn't you go? Like, it was open to you, for you. Why all of a sudden now you feel like, yeah, we have to go back? It was always open for you. Right? Anyway, so you have these Jews here. And it begs the question, what are they doing there? You might say, well, maybe they found a place to do business, found a place to live. Arabia isn't a place you do business, it's a place where you live, man. Like, this is an area where it's so underwhelming, so scarce in its resources that the great conquerors of history never even cared to conquer it. They conquered everything else except Arabia because it was hostile, barren land. Right? It was Bedouin land. The only reason you would go is for Bedouins or Hajj. That's it. Right? So they weren't there for any monetary gain. Okay, so why were they there? And the answer is because in the Torah, it prophesies the coming of the last messenger and that he will come in Arabia in a place where there's a lot of palm trees. All right. And there are only 3 areas in Arabia back then that had a lot of palm trees. Medina, Khaybar, Fadak. These 3 areas, 3 cities. So the Jews lived in these areas. Why? Waiting for the last messenger. Right? And to further corroborate this point, that they were there for that reason, the Jews pretty much, took control of Medina, of Yathrib, and there were 3 Jewish tribes. I have to write this down. Banu Qurayza, Banu Nadir, and Banu Qaynuqa. Right, I'll write this down for you. Banu Nadir, Banu Qaynuqa, and Banu Qaynuqa. So you had 3 Jewish tribes there in Medina, in Yathrib. They were at odds with each other, these tribes, and they were at each other's throats. But they were playing games within Greater Yathrib. And so they pretty much build these alliances with the Arab tribes, the 2 Arab tribes, Aus and Khazraj. And I don't remember exactly who was with who, but for example, Aus was the ally of Banu Nadir, and Khazraj was the ally of, let's say, Banu Qurayza, right? So the Jews, instead of battling each other themselves, they would create proxy wars for 2 reasons. 1, so that they don't have to fight, and 2, to keep the Arabs kind of busy with themselves, their own problems, right? So you see this today with Israel. They're always at each other's throats, by the way, these tribes. You think Arabs are tribalistic? You think Desis are tribalistic? Right? Well, you should see these people. They're worse. They are worse. And this is why every time a prime minister leaves office, there's a corruption case against him. And then he ends up in jail. They hate each other. They can't stand each other. Right? So they create these games. Netanyahu created, he's accused of creating Hamas so that he can pretty much put them up against the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and all this stuff, right? The same kind of games that you see today. So you had these Jewish tribes and you had these Arab tribes. And the Jews would tell the Arabs, the last messenger is coming, and when he comes, we're going to destroy you. We're going to annihilate you because you guys are creating so many problems. Excuse me, you're the ones who are creating the problems and using them for those problems. And now you're saying you're making the problems? It's exactly what you see today. That's why a lot of people call this group the first Zionists, right? These are the first Zionists right here because they were behaving the same exact way. So you have this terrain. And then what happens is Aus and Khazraj, they're sick and tired of the wars. They're sick and tired of the blood between them. And they're sick and tired of being taken advantage of by these Zionists. So they're like, you know what? We're hearing about this man from Quraysh who's claiming to be a prophet. Like they get the news that somebody in Quraysh is saying he's a prophet. So Aus and Khazraj got together and said, you know what? Maybe this is the guy that they keep threatening us with. Let's go to him before they do. And so they go to Hajj and they meet the Prophet, and then there's the first and second bay'ah of Aqaba, right? If you're familiar with the seerah. So they had already prepared themselves. They become Muslim. Aus and Khazraj become Muslim, generally speaking, and they become the Ansar, all right? Whereas when the Prophet enters Medina, the Jews disbelieve in him. Why? Because he is not of their lineage. He's not of the children, the progeny of Ishaq. And all this is documented in Surah Al-Baqarah and other places, right? All of it's being presented. So they knew he was coming. And the Arabs, the Aus and Khazraj, they kept hearing this man is coming. The Arabs become believers and the Jews fight the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. But not all of the Arabs of Yathrib become Muslim. So when the Muslims come on the scene, now you essentially have three groups. You have the Arabs who are Muslims, you have the Arabs who remain mushrikeen, remain polytheists, and you have the Jews, right? And then after Badr, you add a fourth category, and that's the hypocrites. The Arabs who claim to be Muslim externally, who identify as Muslim, but internally are anti-Islam, the hypocrites. So Medina has four groups of people that the Prophet ﷺ now has to navigate. When you get to year 3 and we start going over hadith, we get to some particular hadith of how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with each of these groups. Right. So socially speaking, it's very diverse. And there's a lot of baggage that's coming in with this territory. You have the blood that's between Aus and Khazraj. That's not just going to disappear. That has to be dealt with. So the Prophet deals with that. You have the Jews that are there. Okay, how do you deal with now a group who doesn't believe in what you believe in, but who are under your jurisdiction? Right. So the Treatise of Medina, or the Constitution of Medina, as some call it, give a groundwork for that. So that's the terrain of Medina. Economically, along with trade, you have agriculture. So it's a little bit more diverse economically speaking. And Medina is on the trade routes between Mecca and Damascus, right? Which is very important once the battles start breaking out. So that's like kind of the social situation. The main tasks now of the Prophet ﷺ as a leader of not only a community but of a state, so to speak, is, well, how do we lay the groundwork? What do we do here? And some of the first things he did, I mentioned, he made clear what are what's the relationship between the various groups within the city, the diversity. Aus and Khazraj, your baggage, your past, we're done with it. We're going forward now, right? We're not going to let our past hold us back. With the Jews, for us is what is for you is what is for us, and upon you is what is upon us. So, what would be translated today as a certain amount of equality, social equality, and political equality, to an extent, right? Among other things. I don't want to get to all the details because we'd be, spending many hours on it. But one thing I want to add to that is the building of the masjid. Right? When the first thing the Prophet ﷺ did when he entered Medina was build a masjid. Right? That's not just a spiritual task. That's also very symbolic of the role of the masjid. The masjid is a center where Muslims gather and unite. It's more than just a place where you pray Jum'ah. It's more than just a place where you pray Salah. Right? It's a place where Muslims gather and unite and collaborate to fulfill the most important aspects of the faith. Surah Al-Baqarah is the earliest surah revealed in Medina. And when you look at Surah Al-Baqarah, it's really laying the groundwork for a community and a legal system. Right? That's Surah Al-Baqarah in a nutshell. So the Prophet ﷺ now has to actually build a community. He's not just giving da'wah anymore. He's still giving da'wah, but it's not just da'wah. He's actually dealing with a community, dealing with the political side and the economic side and the military side as well. Now, when it comes to the surahs in Medina, the Madani surahs, we can give a pretty accurate chronological order of how these surahs were revealed. Not 100%, but a pretty confident one. So the earliest surah to be revealed in Medina is Surah Al-Baqarah. I'll try and write it big enough so that people virtually can see it. So year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. A little bit into 11. Year 1 is Surah Al-Baqarah. Year 2, Anfal. 3, you have the second half of Al Imran. Year 5 or 6, you have Ahzab. Year 9, you have Tawbah. You also have the first half of Al Imran. Surah Al-Ma'idah is coming somewhere in here, 9, 10. All right. What else do we have? Surah Nisa. Surah Nisa is not very clear, but Surah Nisa, Nur, these Hujurat, these surahs that are about marriage, divorce, social issues, my guess is they're coming somewhere here, right? This is my guess, but I'm not going to put it down. You have Surah Al-Hashr, where they exile Banu Qurayza, and you have Banu Qurayza somewhere, I think around here. Yeah, because they're the ones who collaborate. So Hashr, and you have Surah Al-Fatih, which is during Sulh Hudaybiyah, so you're having it somewhere over here, etc. Right? We have a much more accurate picture. Why? Because these surahs are addressing events. And we know when those events happen, what years those events happen, generally speaking, right? So it differs over, scholars differ over when Sulh Hudaybiyah, the Treatise of Hudaybiyah, which Surah Al-Fatih came as a result of. Was it the 50th year, 60th year, 7th year? Khaybar, when did that happen? There's some difference of opinion, but we have a general idea, right? Now, this is incredibly important because it gives you a little bit more of a framework in terms of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the Muslim community, right? So Surah Al-Baqarah is the first surah that's being revealed. And what is the task of the Prophet? As I mentioned, you have to build a community now. You're building a state. So Allah is giving the framework. Right? You have this group called the Zionists who are there. How do you deal with them? The second half of Surah Al-Anfal, you're just victorious in a battle. How do you deal with that? Second half of Al Imran, you were just defeated in a battle. How do you deal with that? Surah Al-Ma'idah, right? When you look at it, it's very interesting because, and this is what Allah is leaving the community with before certain events that are going to come after the death of the Prophet, specifically leaving Arabia. How do you deal with this? And so a lot of this surah has to do with the Jews and Christians, but none of it is about jihad, which tells us what? Right? It's almost foreshadowing that most of our interactions post-prophet is going to be dealing with the Jews and the Christians. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that as community leaders? How do you deal with their injustices, etc.? Any questions so far? All right, so on page 29, you have the themes of, you know what, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. When's your final? The final week.
I believe right after we come back from break.
So the second week of January? Second week, so 6, 7 to 6. Okay, so we have 1, 2. Oh, we only have 2 more classes.
We have 3 classes this until we go to break.
2 more classes after today.
Yeah, 2 more classes.
The 9 and 16. That's it. Then the final. Okay. Yeah.
Your phone call speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mind me asking what specific benefit?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
What about you?
um,
Ramadan? I spent summers in Ramadan.
yeah. Oh, you spent summer going on?
Oh, yeah. The Buzarukab and Shurma Skandar and all that. Do you know the pharmacy that's on that close to Buzarukab?
Not sure enough.
Yeah. It was my aunt's pharmacy.
What's your favorite shawarma?
Skandar.
Skandar?
Yeah, the one right. You know how Buzarukab's kind of on that corner when you just go this way? This guy right here.
First time I do it.
I don't think
It's one of the best shawarma.
probably newer. Probably
It's
in
great.
my time. What is it?
I don't know, honestly. The new one, it's not too new, it's relatively new, they brought in, it's called the Top Shawarma.
Mm.
I don't know, apparently the entire Dublin likes it.
Oh, yeah? It's up to you. Is the Checker still there? That fast food place?
No, I don't think so.
It's gone, right? One of the summers we went, it was new, it was a big thing.
It was the last time you went to them.
Wow, man, 2005.
Oh, okay, oh yeah,
Mhm.
that is. A lot of stuff is. You didn't go back at all while you were enjoying. No time.
Didn't risk it, man.
Um,
I ain't going back with a beard. And they gave us enough problems when we were minors. All right. So page 29, you have certain themes of the Madani surahs. And they include ritual acts such as prayer, fasting, hajj, charity, etc. Now, Salah was obligated during the Meccan period, right? The Prophet ﷺ was praying. But the rest, zakah, siyam, hajj, and charity, obviously, were obligated in Medina, right? So verses that talk about these things, especially when they give details on how to perform them, you are in a Madani surah. Second, rulings and regulations related to personal, social, economic life, marriage, divorce, etc. These are Madani themes. And then finally, discussing Jews, Christians, hypocrites are Madani surahs as well. Now, that doesn't mean people of the book, for example, are never mentioned in a Meccan surah. But when they are, scholars differ. Is this particular verse actually from Medina, but was put in a Meccan surah? Or was there another reason? There could be another reason. There were certain delegations that came from Yemen and visited the Prophet ﷺ while he was still in Mecca. Hence in Surah Al-An'am, when Allah talks about the people of the book, right? It's referring to that, when they first met the Prophet while he was still in Mecca. Right, so those are the three themes of Madani surahs. And there are three characteristics. One, the mention of specific punishments for certain crimes, like theft, like fornication, like murder, etc. Those are Madani surahs. The mention of hypocrites, Jews, and Christians, Madani surahs. And then the length. In general, Madani surahs are longer in terms of pages and longer in terms of verses. Each verses tend to be longer in Madani surahs, but not always. All right. And finally, Meccan surahs, just as a refresher, are surahs where the majority of verses were revealed before migration, Madani after migration, and then there are certain surahs where there's a difference of opinion as to whether they are Mecki or Madani. Why? Because the content you see themes of both, such as there are difference in narrations from companions when the surah came, such as Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Ra'd, Surah Al-Rahman, Surah Al-Hajj, Surah Al-Ankabut. Are these Madani or Mecki? Because the themes kind of overlap. All right, any questions about Mecki and Madani? Yes.
There's like a few when they say they would say like I know where every single verse, when every verse is revealed.
Not every, but they'll say it.
Like close to that, do we not know like each and every single verse and sort of like exactly because maybe like they didn't teach it to one of their students or something like that, to that level of detail?
We don't. The companions never cared to document the exact causes or times of revelation, which tells you it doesn't really matter. It's really insignificant. Had it been significant, they would have talked about it more. All right. The next chapter is causes of revelation, or what's called Asbab al-Nuzul. I really need this. That's N64 stuff, man. Most of the people here don't even know what you're talking about. If it works, man, that's a damn moment right there.
Oh,
it almost worked.
For a second. Oh, you have to go on the inside of this too.
Maybe. Man, we used to challenge each other who can have the best blow. We can make that whistle sound. It's not working. Right? Anyway, causes of revelation. Here, what we're talking about is a particular event because of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals a surah or a verse or a set of verses, right? Once again, Asbab al-Nuzul, or translate as causes of revelation, is essentially when a verse, surah, or set of verses are revealed in light of a certain event, whether that event is a battle, event is someone did something, or someone said something. right? So this is sabab al-nuzul. Now, as we were kind of just discussing right here, not every verse in the Quran, not every surah in the Quran has a cause of revelation, but some do. Now, an example of that is Umar radiallahu ta'ala was approached by a Jew during his Khilafah, and he was asked by the Jew, he was told by the Jew that there is a verse in the Quran, had it been in the Torah, we would make it a celebration, we would make it a Eid, a holiday. And Umar said, and what's that? He said, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم, Surah Al-Ma'idah, وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Today I have perfected your religion, and I am pleased for Islam to be your way of life. And Umar said, I know where the Prophet was when it was revealed. I was with him. I know where he was and when it happened. He was on the Mount of Arafah, and it was a Friday during Hajj, the day of Arafah, right? So here we have a type of cause of revelation, and that is Muslims having found victory, performing Hajj freely with the power, right, in their hand, and for the first time, the Muslims as a free, independent community perform Hajj with their Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. So they kind of reached a pinnacle. And there are many examples of this. Now, the importance of page 35, the importance of causes of revelation is that it sheds light on the wisdom behind a particular legal ruling. So, for example, the one time and the only time, as far as I'm aware, the Prophet ﷺ had someone's hand cut off for theft is a lady would ask people to borrow something from them. She'd go, can I borrow this from you? And she'd never give it back. And when the owner would go and ask for it back, she would say, no, you never gave me anything. Right? She had this habit of doing this. She did it with multiple people. So they made a case against her, and she kind of admitted guilt. And they wanted, and the Prophet ﷺ commanded for her hand to be cut. So here you have a type of, it sheds light on some aspects of the legal ruling. And that theft isn't limited to what we call break-in and stealing. It's also you willingly giving me something, but then denying your right in that regard. Right? Hey, let's trade. I'll buy that for whatever amount. Can I give you the money later? Yeah, sure, fine. Here, take the item, and I never give the money back. That's a type of theft. It provides context. You had a question?
Yeah, that example, were you saying that's the only time that the hand was ordered to be amputated, or that type of
No,
exchange
the only
that caused it to be?
the hand, the first.
That was the only time that it
As far as I'm aware.
Okay.
But the only time during the time of the Prophet. Second, it provides context and background that will prevent misinterpretations. It aids in properly applying the verse, and then it provides the names of individuals who may be referred to in the verse. So it gives us a context and more accuracy in terms of implementation. Now, the Quran is designed in a way by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that understanding the verse and applying it is not conditional to knowing the reason of revelation, right? In other words, there could be a reason for the revelation of a particular verse, but if you understand the Arabic language enough, the fiqh behind it, then you can get by without knowing the cause of revelation. Does that make sense? So it's not an end-all be-all thing. It's important, but it's not an end-all be-all thing. And theoretically speaking, a person can apply the Quran in a pristine way without knowing a single cause of revelation. That's how the Quran is written. right? It's not limited to that. Why I bring this up is not so much about the Quran, but about hadith. Hadith is more complicated to understand. All right. Now, how's hadith complicated to understand? You know, if you eat, say Bismillah and eat with your right hand, what's complicated about that? Well, there are many more things that you need to consider and you need to actually research in order to properly understand a hadith. For example, the Quranic language is more black and white than the regular language. The way Allah uses language is more black and white than, let's say, hadith. So when you hear the word naha, to prohibit, and it's used by the Quran, it's a prohibition, right? But when the companions say the Prophet prohibited us from doing X, Y, and Z, you can't understand it as automatically as a prohibition because it could be a discouragement. Now, if the Prophet says, yeah, I don't recommend you do that, you can understand why you would say the Prophet prohibited me, because it's more like I obey the Prophet. And whether he says it's haram or discouraged, it's kind of the same. He told me not to do it, right? So you have to actually sift through many variations of hadith, through other usuli tools, epistemological tools, in order to determine when the Prophet said naha, when he said I prohibit you, did he mean literally this is haram, or is he discouraging us? Whereas the Quran, it's not really like that. If it says haram, it's haram, right? If it says prohibited, prohibited. Another example is the use of certain words. The Quran is more black and white, such as kufr. When Allah says kafir, kufr in the Quran, I'm talking about this is like Iblis level. This person knew the truth and consciously rejected it. He rejected the truth knowing it's the truth. That's the way Allah uses the word kufr. This is why such severe punishment and consequences are attributed to kufr in the Quran. Whereas the use of the word in hadith is more diverse. The Prophet can say kufr, not meaning literally that person is a kafir, but rather they are behaving like a kafir, even though they're a believer. So for example, سباب المسلم فسوق وقتاله كفر. Fighting another Muslim is kufr. Prophet literally says it's kufr. No, but he didn't mean you are a kafir. You know, murdering another Muslim isn't kufr, as per the Quran. So what does the Prophet mean that fighting another Muslim, even if it doesn't lead to death, is kufr? But what he means is you're behaving like the kuffar. It's a disbelievers thing to fight each other, not a believers thing, right? So you have more diversity in terms of how certain words are used that people it could go over their head and it can cause problems. So be very careful when approaching hadith. Never assume you understand what hadith means until you go back to what the scholar said. I can't emphasize this enough. ISIS declared war against the world because of a hadith. أمرت أن أقاتل الناس حتى يقولوا لا إله إلا الله. This is an authentic hadith, right? Translated as, I was commanded to fight people until they say La ilaha illallah. So they declared war against the world. Had they gone back to what the scholars said and how the scholars understood this, they would have seen that the scholars by majority said, An-nas, people here is referring specifically to Quraysh. The majority of scholars, the majority of muhaddithin, said this hadith is referring either to Quraysh specifically or Arabia specifically, not to mankind, right? So be very careful when it comes to hadith. If you're careful about Quran, be even more careful about hadith, because many people misunderstand hadith and misapply it, and it causes problems, right? ISIS wasn't a small problem; it was a big problem, and it all goes back to hadith. All right.
Sure.
Yes.
I have a quick question. If you're like giving dawah to somebody, especially if you come with like pre-prepared hadith,
Mhm.
and then they hit you with something like that you don't understand the context, is it best just to say, look, I don't know it, I can get back to it another time?
Yeah. Mhm.
And just not even try to answer with these type of hadith that could be
For sure,
ambiguous.
for sure. Sometimes they come with fabricated hadith. It's not even a hadith, right? Sometimes they come with authentic hadith, but they mistranslate it,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes they come with even verses, right? They come with hadith or a verse and they say, your scholar said X, and they don't look at what other scholars said. So there could be multiple opinions about something, right? Such as, يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب. This was a Tariq. Right? They say, oh, this is scientifically erroneous. It's inaccurate. It's saying that the child comes from between the backbone and the rib, right? Saying no, it doesn't. It comes from a different place. And then if you analyze the verse, I don't want to get into details. If you analyze the verse, they're understanding the verse incorrectly from the start, and then they don't look at all the differences of opinion in terms of how those verses are understood. So that's another way they tend to make their arguments. Or else, if you're familiar with the hadith, you're familiar with its authenticity, you're familiar with what the scholars said, there's never been a hadith that has been controversial in terms of debate. In terms of politics and social culture and whatnot, that's a different story, right? But in terms of debate and proving and disproving Islam, and worst case scenario, they come to us with what Muslims have believed is authentic hadith, and they somehow disprove it as scientifically inaccurate. Then all we need to do is, all that they have done is discarded a hadith from the corpus of hadith. That's it. It's okay. Toss this hadith out. You're left with a bunch of other ones. You're not doing much, right? Because what they tend to go after are very tertiary issues. They don't go after, the pillars of Islam. They can't. And then you have the following maxim. And that is how it's worded here. Consideration, the second paragraph here in this section, bottom page, so the last paragraph, page 35, first line. Consideration is given to the general meanings of words, not to specific causes. In other words, so this is a maxim, principle of understanding Quran. If a verse or surah or a set of verses are revealed in light of an event, right? And that event is addressing certain people or a certain context. That context, those characters don't limit the application of the verse. We understand the verse in its generality, not in the specific cause. Okay, so let me think of an example here. I want to do that example. So in the beginning of Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about proper etiquettes with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Don't raise your voice above the voice of the Prophet, and don't put yourself before the Prophet. Now, the cause of revelation here is the companions would sometimes be with the Prophet, and they'll start joking around, and their voices drown his voice, right? Other things, for example, it comes, hey, Ya Rasulullah, tell me about this. They just kind of take him as, when you're a sheikh, if you're a sheikh, you'll get these people who come and say, hey, sheikh, call me, I need you, right? Very like, I need you to serve me in something. The tone is very disrespectful, right? You had people like that with the Prophet, kind of, hey, oh, he's here, let's just go at it. It takes away from the reverence that's required towards the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Surah Al-Hujurat is coming and addressing these things. And there are specific incidents for these verses, right? However, we're not to understand that, okay, because the Prophet is no longer with us, and therefore it's impossible for us to raise our voices above the voice of the Prophet, because the Prophet no longer has a voice right now that can be heard, and therefore these verses no longer are applicable in our times today. No, we have to understand it more generally. For example, when hadith is being spoken about, we will equate that to the Prophet ﷺ actually speaking. And so if hadith is being mentioned and spoken about, it is part of Islamic etiquette that we don't raise our voice or ignore it or just kind of shun it and say, oh, I'm going to go do something else. We do this with the Quran. When the Quran is being played, when the Quran is being recited, people naturally kind of lower their voices and they respect the Quran. Well, Allah is telling us to do the same with the Prophet ﷺ, right? So although these verses have a specific reason why they were revealed, addressing the behaviors of specific individuals, we understand the verses not as limited to that, but more general in terms of the broader etiquettes that's being encouraged. Does that make sense? Right, so this is a very important maxim in the Islamic sciences. All right, any questions about causes of revelation?
Back to what you were saying earlier. Like, I feel like that's a pretty important thing that I never heard like when I was younger about like, oh, like don't, like you should be very careful about approaching hadith because they're not necessarily like readily understandable. And why do you think that's not like really like taught or maybe it is. I never like had that. And I feel like a lot of people like in my community never have that understanding. So they want to learn about something and it's coming from a good place, but they'll be like, okay, like, we go on to look it up, as opposed to being like, what have scholars said about this thing?
Yeah. I don't know. Because the scholars have mentioned this. I mean, it's literally one of the set of scholars, the early scholars said, if it wasn't for Malik and Layth, Imam Malik and Imam Layth, these two fuqaha, I would have went misguided. Like I would have misguided myself and misguided others because of misunderstanding hadith. In other words, their fiqh helped me better understand what these hadith actually mean. So within the scholarly world, it's known. But I think when you talk about hadith, where people more focus on, or what they more focus on, is the authenticity of the hadith, more so than the actual meaning. Because again, when the Prophet says, eat from what is in front of you, say Bismillah, and eat with your right hand, it sounds simple enough. Like, well, what's there to interpret? It's pretty basic, right? And some hadith are basic, but is that an obligation? When the Prophet is commanding, the verb form it's coming in is a command, right? Is that an actual obligation or is it a recommendation? Now you have to actually do some digging here. So, I don't know why it's not emphasized more, but it should be. Any other questions about causes of revelation?
Kind of a question, but it's not about like causes of revelation. But if you were saying some ahadith can be like misinterpreted, or some ahadith like they can have kind of like a more internal like meaning. So I was gonna ask you about like a specific hadith, the hadith that كل بدعة ضلالة people say, like there's some people who take it literally, and there's others who say, like when he said kullu, when Prophet said kullu, didn't mean every single one, bad ones, or I don't know, you could like.
Oh, you're that crowd.
Yeah.
And I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing you. Hadith, when understood properly, does not misguide. It's not complicated. Like it falls into what's being said. The question is, how do you define bid'ah? That's where the question goes. We'll leave the kull, all. But what is bid'ah? This is where people mess up. And they mess up either by making the definition too broad, too comprehensive, or too limited, too small. And the simple answer is, the Prophet ﷺ, what was his role? Why was he sent? What was his function? His function was religious. It wasn't worldly, right? It wasn't worldly. So when the Prophet says every bid'ah, anything new, new in what sense? New in the sense of what he was sent to do, religious, okay? Another thing is, slipped my mind. So it's from the religious aspect, not from the worldly aspect. So a bid'ah here off the bat has to do with acts of religiosity, not acts of worldly things. So those who come and say the Prophet never rode a bike, that's a bid'ah, you have no idea what you're talking about, right? And so that's one. So those who say that, they just put this very broad net and pretty much, and then anything becomes bid'ah. No, you have to understand the function of the Prophet, why he was sent. He was sent for religious things. That's where bid'ah is that's where we're going to look at, right? So bid'ah has to do with ritualistic acts of worship, not business, not trade, not technologies, not pharmaceuticals, but acts of worship, right? And then those who make it too small pretty much say that anything that's done for the sake of Allah is a valid act of worship. No, that's not how worship works. Worship is valid under two conditions, not one, not just one. One is sincerity, yes. The other is obedience, that you are worshiping Allah the way He told you to worship Him, right? The way He told you to worship Him. So those who come and start jumping and doing these who, and saying we're worshiping Allah, we're doing it out of love, right? Allah didn't tell you to do that. And if you really love Allah, you will do what He told you to do. And Ibn Qayyim gives a beautiful example. He says, imagine a king, and he's talking to two people, and both those people love him very much. And the king is telling them, go do X, Y, and Z. So one goes and does X, Y, and Z. The other one just stares and stares at the king, the smile on his face. And the king is like, what are you doing? I told you go do that. I said, I love you so much, I don't want to leave you. I just want to keep looking at you. Who loves the king more? The one who went and carried out the task, or the one who's sitting there looking? Does the one who's looking actually love the king? He loves himself. Because if it was about the king, he would have went and did what the king said, right? So just because you feel like you love Allah, or you want to express your love for Allah by doing these things, does not mean it's actual love of Allah. So people limit it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it is.
Anything else?
I guess I don't exactly know how to word the question, but if because the Quran was responding to real life situations when it was revealed, right? So I don't know if people use this as an argument, but couldn't one say well, the Quran is not relevant to me or to us or to our times because it was responding to a very specific scenario way back when. I don't know if that's something an argument people come with, but how would you, I guess, respond to that?
Yeah, this is the argument of the we're the 21st century Muslims. You know those people? It's 21st century, Sheikh. Why are we still following this old stuff? Let me give you an example. In Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يَكْسِبْ خطيئة أو إثما ثم يرمي به بريئا فقد احتمل بهتانا وإثما مبينا. Anyway, there was a situation that happened in Medina where somebody stole something from someone else. And the one who was robbed started to make, a big deal out of it. Somebody took, who took. And so they started following the evidence and they got close to the one who actually robbed it. So the one who robbed it, to cover his trail, tossed it in the home of a Jew. Right? So what? They find the stolen property on someone else's property. I mean, that's pretty strong evidence, right? Who stole it? So they find the shield and the property of a Jew, and they start accusing him. And the one who's accusing him is the one who actually stole in the first place. So the Prophet ﷺ was about to have that Jew punished, right? Until the verses came down and clarified. Now, in our times today, does that happen? Does framing others happen? Yeah, right? People who say that, how can we find relevance? The human being is the same. From the time of Adam, from when Adam was in paradise until now, the essence of the human being is exactly the same. Because we have the same exact desires, same exact motivations, same exact pursuits, same exact attachments. It's the same, right? We might dress differently, but that's about it. Right? The human being remains the same. And the Quran is a book of guidance for the human being to navigate life. Life is the same, the human being is the same, even if the technologies have changed drastically. All goes back to the same thing. Right? But those who aren't able to find the similarities, they're just out of touch, to be very honest. Or else, why is it that so many people from tougher parts of America who are in jail, who are in, gang infested parts of the nation, why is it so easy for them to see the truth of Islam? Because they know what reality is. So the Quran talks about. Right? So people say, oh, this is not relevant, whatnot. They're out of touch from life. Let's just be real here. Anyone who's raised in middle class and above, there's an amount of being out of touch with reality. Right? That's why it's like, what is this really saying? What is the Quran talking about? Because they ain't living life. Go live life and you understand what it's talking about. Right?
Thank you.
All right.
I've heard some local scholars say like you need
Who are the local scholars?
that like you need the sira to understand the Quran, and then I've heard this other side that's like any random Joe can open the Quran and interpret it however they want. Where do we fall in terms of how the average person can understand the Quran, such in relation to that principle that there are like general etiquettes we can get that don't need to be tied to positive religion.
Right. So that's an experiment. Give me a random verse, Mr. Isa. Random verse. Random. Random page, choose a random verse. Grant, tell them stop.
Stop right there.
Choose one. What is it?
استغفر لهم أو لا تستغفر لهم إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة يغفر الله لهم.
Okay. So yeah, you have a random verse. Do it. Ask Allah for forgiveness. Ask Allah to forgive them, or don't ask Allah to forgive them. If you ask Allah to forgive them 70 times, Allah won't forgive them. Continue the verse.
ذلك بأنهم كفروا بالله ورسوله والله لا يهدي القوم.
Why? Because they have disbelieved in Allah and His Messenger. And Allah won't guide the disbelievers. Right? So, where do you find relevance of this verse in this rough translation that I gave you in terms of our times today?
That if someone is so stubborn and stuck on like not believing in the truth, then they're gonna be stuck that way, whether you try to help them or whether you leave them alone.
Okay, so when people come and say, why is the punishment of hellfire so severe? Oh my God, this is offensive. People get taken back. Samson, right? Oh, but they're such good people. We hear this, right? They're such good people. Okay. That's fine. Maybe they are good people. But bring up Allah and see how they act. Bring up Allah and see how they act. I've seen wonderful people who are great towards human beings. As soon as you talk about Allah, they say, I don't care about this. I care about humanity. I'm bothered by a piece of plastic floating in the Pacific Ocean because it hurts the animals in the sea. Don't you dare bring up Allah. Now we see a different side of this person, right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very severe like this, no matter how much prophet, let alone us, you can make dua for them, for their mercy, as much as you want. They ain't getting it. Why? Because they rejected Allah. Remember how I said the word kufr is a really strong word in the Quran. Incredibly strong word. It's talking about those who knew the truth and rejected it consciously. I mean, can you imagine? Like a Muslim cannot fathom you. I'm sure you've never fathomed this, knowing that this is the truth from Allah and saying, "Yeah, I'm not interested." It's mind-boggling to a Muslim, right? But to them, it's their everyday life. So you see the relevance? Random verse. Now, this is actually worked out perfectly because there's a specific cause of revelation for this verse. It's in light of the death of the leader of the hypocrites in Medina, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. Right? When he passed away, the Prophet wanted to bury him, because his son was a good believer. The son of Abdullah, the leader of the hypocrites, was a sincere believer. And when you look at kind of what is there in terms of how Abdullah treated his son, he treated his son well. Right? He was a good father. And he was about to become the leader of Yathrib before the Prophet came. So that's why he had such resentment towards the Prophet. Hint, hint. Right? People in our community. Hint, hint. Right? All of a sudden, somebody's on a rampage. So-and-so and Sheikh so-and-so and all these shuyukh and whatnot. Where's that resentment coming from? Right? Everybody has their faults. Everybody has the celebrity culture stuff needs to go. Wallahi needs to go. Community leaders need to focus on their community, not just traveling everywhere and have a social media presence, but have no time for people, in their own masjid. Doesn't make any sense. There will always be celebrities, by the way. It's just a natural human society. But those who just make it their career to bash these individuals, where is the resentment coming from? All right. So you can find relevance of a verse that actually has a specific cause of revelation in our times today. That has nothing to do with the specific cause of revelation. Does that make sense? So the Quran is structured in a way in that it is shifa, it is healing, and it is guidance for humanity. And that every verse can provide an amount of guidance. Sometimes it's a little bit more direct and relevant to a person's life or circumstances. Sometimes it's more general, right? Like what I gave right now is more general. But somebody who maybe had a father who passed away as a non-Muslim, or maybe a father who says he's a Muslim, but his actions are clearly he's not a Muslim. There are people in the community like this. I've gotten emails like this, right? So that's a little bit more specific in terms of its relevance to that individual. So every part of the Quran, every verse in the Quran serves as guidance for every single person, either generally or specifically, right? Now, in terms of, what was the first one he said?
Oh, they need the seerah.
You need the seerah. So similar to what we're just talking, causes of revelation, no doubt it provides more clarity and more specificity. And where this becomes increasingly important is in fiqh. Because in order to determine what the fiqh ruling is, you need a lot of specificity, right? And the asbab nuzul and seerah and whatnot help show that. Wow. All right, abrogation. Abrogation, English for nessus, I'm gonna try and simplify this concept as much as I can. If it doesn't make sense in your mind, assume it doesn't make sense in somebody else's mind, so don't be shy to ask me to clarify a little bit more. Abrogation is this legal term for replacing a law with another law. Abrogation, nesakh, is a legal term for removing one law to replace it with another law. This is abrogation. And the more specific technical definition as per the Islamic sciences is that the removal of a fiqh ruling for an early fiqh ruling, removal of an early fiqh ruling with a later fiqh ruling equal to or less demanding. Remember, equally or less demanding. So the technical definition of an abrogation is the removal of an early fiqh ruling with a later fiqh ruling equally or less demanding. Sheikh Farhan, see how he has it. For another legal ruling that was revealed after. So almost the same as what Sheikh Farhan has here, but I added a little more detail. So immediately, can somebody write this in the WhatsApp chat, in case people online can't see, or people who come back later to the video? So immediately, what do you notice about this definition? What are some key terms here? One. Early. So early and later, right? Equally, less demanding, okay? Fiqh ruling. All right. So abrogation, number one, only occurs in fiqh. Abrogations only in fiqh, not theology or information. In other words, you're not going to find one story about Prophet Dawood abrogating a previous story about Prophet Dawood. Why not? That's a contradiction. These are facts, right? Theology is a fact. Allah exists or he doesn't. It's one of the two. He's one or he's not. It's one of the two. You can't come and say, worship Allah alone, and oh, you know what? Actually worship two. That's a contradiction. You can't say Dawood alayhi salam, the mountains used to follow his recitation, say, no, it wasn't the mountains, it was actually the trees. That's a contradiction. So abrogations only in fiqh, legal. Why? Why is that not a contradiction? And the answer is, what is the function of law? Why are there laws?
Keep like a functioning society.
To keep a functioning society. Okay. Are there certain laws that can become obsolete as society changes? Yes, right? And therefore, the government, if it were to hold on to those previous laws, saying that we need to honor the tradition of our founding fathers or whatever, and now society is actually being harmed as a result of that, is that wisdom? That's not wisdom, right? So, I don't know if you remember several years ago when Obama was still president, there was a whole VA problem, Veterans Association or whatever, the Veterans Administration. Like, I forgot exactly what the problem was. I was younger, I wasn't really following politics, but I remember there was a problem with the VA. And they asked Obama, what's the deal? And he said, the VA was established in the 60s using the technologies available from the 60s, and they're still using that technology today. Right? The technologies of the 60s cannot keep up with the demand of 2010. Does that make sense? Right? So the laws need to adjust according to the technologies, the shifts in society, the shifts in economics and whatnot. Right? So what you have is in fiqh rulings initially came down in a way that understood the realities of the believers under certain circumstances and adjusted as their circumstances changed. All right. Now, what's going to come in some of your minds is, well, Allah has changed since then. We're not changing the rulings, are we? And the answer is yes and no. There are some rulings we're not going to change because it's too clear-cut in the Quran, such as the law of inheritance. People come today and say, everything is different today. The laws of inheritance are structured around a society where the man is a sole breadwinner and the lady is not responsible for any sort of financial responsibility. In our times today, women are constantly finding themselves as the primary, financial resource for whoever, or she's ending up a single mother, or she's ending up, her family's in another state or another country and she's alone here and whatnot. So this idea where men are getting more inheritance because they have more financial responsibility is no longer the case. And why can't we change? That's a very valid point, by the way, right? And so now it becomes, why can't we change this ruling about inheritance to accommodate these realities? And the answer is, it is only Allah who can abrogate. We can't abrogate. That's one. So we don't have the authority to change it, especially when it's concrete. The laws of inheritance are concrete. It is the least, it is the least disagreed upon. It is the chapter of fiqh that has the least amount of differences of opinion. Laws of inheritance. All right. Now, my personal response to that is, when you have laws in Islam that are unequivocal, clear-cut, permanent, concrete, never going to change, in my mind, I see that as a type of center point that the Muslims need to go towards, right? If the laws of inheritance no longer seem to accommodate the realities, then it's not that we have to change the law, we have to change our realities. Does that make sense? We have to change our realities. That's the problem. So we need to go back to a society that promotes the role of men and financial power and responsibility. That doesn't mean women no longer work and whatnot. She could still work, but the man needs to see himself as responsible for the women around him, whether they work or not. That part of society is missing, right? If that makes sense, right? So no, there are some laws that will never change, even if the society has changed. For us, it's going to be, we got to change society to go back to that center point. That center point is showing us a healthier society. And then, no, there are other things that, they change. For example, commerce, the way this government is structured and whatnot, the laws around that. If you look at political science in the Islamic corpus, right, you find that there are 3 primary books in political science of Islam. Islamic political science, 3 books. And they're written at 3 different eras of Muslim history. The first book was written when Muslim politics was very powerful. They were the superpower. A second time when it begins to weaken, and a third time where there was pretty much no Muslim polity. And you see how each author approaches political science differently based on their circumstances. So there are other areas where, it changes. Right? There's no concrete rulings, and therefore we have flexibility to accommodate the contemporary realities. Right? Someone had a question. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of pertaining to the last statement you made. Do an example of Umar, radiallahu anhu. During his caliphate, I think I heard that he, for a period of time, lifted the punishment of, I think, theft or something like that, because there was a famine.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we take that and also understand that fiqh rulings aren't going to be like abrogated, but maybe there's certain conditions that have to be in place?
Right. Exactly. I mean, you just explained it. They clearly understood that the penal code, penal law, is not something that's just applied black and white. There are certain conditions that need to be met, and those conditions are found either in Quran or in Hadith and how the Prophet ﷺ applied it. And in time of famine, one of those conditions kind of automatically missing, and that is the condition of need. Right? Do you need this or not? Like, did the person steal out of need to live, to survive? Does that make sense? So this isn't an abrogation, it's actually an application of the proper understanding of this ruling.
Could some I don't know, like this, some I guess Islamic judge or something like that today do something similar, or is that something only unique to the righteous?
So in our times today, no Muslim country is taking jizya from non-Muslims, nor have I even heard a scholar call for it. Right, even though it's in the Quran, حتى يعطوا الجزية. And then the penal code, what country, what Islamic country applies the penal law? I mean, you hear murmurs from like Brunei or Saudi Arabia every now and then, but it's not a full-fledged application of the penal code. And again, the fiqh councils of the world aren't exactly criticizing the governments for not doing that. Why? Because they properly understand the function of these things. So it's not an abrogation, but rather an application. Jizya is taken from non-Muslims under the condition that Muslims protect them. And so the scholars of old, if Muslims are unable to protect the non-Muslims, then the non-Muslims have to pay jizya. Right? In our times today, the Muslim countries can't protect their own, let alone from foreign invasions and whatnot, right? So does that answer your question? Okay. So one, it's only in fiqh rulings. Second, the 2 rulings cannot be reconcilable. So remember, there's an earlier fiqh ruling and a later fiqh ruling. When we look at these fiqh rulings, it's one or the other. You cannot reconcile it. The application of one automatically makes the other unapplicable. All right? So, for example, the changing of the Qibla. When the Prophet ﷺ first went to Medina, the Qibla was where? It was Jerusalem. Now, if you're in Medina, Mecca is to your what? Right, here's Mecca, and Jerusalem is where? North. You can't be facing both. When the Prophet was in Mecca, he could face both. He could face the Kaaba and Jerusalem at the same time. Even Medina, it's one or the other, right? So initially it was Jerusalem. Then you have the verses that come and say Mecca. That's here an example of irreconcilability. You cannot reconcile. It's one or the other. You can't pray north and south at the same time. So which one is it? It has to be one or the other, right? Now, is the changing of the Qibla an example of abrogation? Some scholars said yes. However, other scholars said in order for abrogation to happen, it could only be in the Quran. And there's nothing in the Quran that says face Jerusalem. See what I mean? So the verses, when they come, they say face Mecca. It's not coming after verses that said face Jerusalem. So it's not really an abrogation, according to some scholars. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So it has to be in the Quran. Well, let me just put one more here. Number 3, we need to know the timeline. We need to know the timeline of these verses. We need to know one came before the other. Which one is first, which one is second. Remember, abrogation, the later verse abrogates the first one. If we don't know what comes when, right, then we can't really do abrogation. So what is an example of this? So the Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the iddah period, the waiting period of a widow is a year, right? والذين يتوفون منكم ويذرون أزواجا يتربصن ويذرون أزواجا وصية لأزواج متاعا إلى الحول غير إخراج. 1 year. And then you have another verse in Surah Al-Baqarah that says 4 months, 10 days. Now, there's nothing in these verses that indicate which one was revealed first. So what waiting period is it? Is it a year or is it 4 months, 10 days? Right. But we have no information in terms of the verses which one was revealed first. We do have information, however, in hadith, where the companions, the female companions said that during, before Islam, the widow would wait a year. So we know that that was the initial ruling that was then later abrogated by this new ruling that's 4 months and 10 days. That makes sense? Now, some scholars come and say, but is that really irreconcilable? You have 2 verses. One is saying the iddah period, the waiting period is 4 months, 10 days. The other one is saying 1 year. Can we reconcile these two? Can't. What if we say the 4 months, 10 days obligation, the rest of the year is a recommendation? We can't say that?
Was it practice?
No, forget about practice. Can we say that? What? Are you saying no because you don't want to wait for 1 year? Or are you saying... Why not? It's an obligation. It's an obligation to pray Isha 4 rak'ahs, and then it's a sunnah to pray 2 more after. It's an obligation to do 4 months, 10 days, but a recommendation to continue the rest of the year. Is that possible? That's the type of reconciliation. Yeah, some scholars took that. Other scholars said no, it's an abrogation, right? So I'm just giving you examples of these. Okay? You know the timeline, you know when, and then these are the 3 primary ones. Maybe I'll check the book and see if there are others. Equally or less demanding is in terms of the no, it's not equally or less demanding. Sorry, word this one. أو مثلها يأتي بخير منها أو مثلها. Ruling better or equivalent. Okay. Going from facing south, from facing north to Jerusalem, facing south Mecca, is it better or equal? In terms of action, how much it takes from a person? Equal. All right. Another place where abrogation is spoken about is fasting. We'll get to that, inshallah. Initially, fasting was not an obligation. You either fasted or you paid. Right? And then it became you must fast. Is this going to an easier ruling or more difficult ruling? Okay, so how is it? It's not equivalent. How is it better? Spiritually, right? So better isn't easier, not necessarily easier. It can mean better in terms of you get more reward, right? So next time, inshallah, we'll continue the conversation, and we'll go over maybe specific examples of abrogation, and in terms of how many verses were abrogated and why some denied abrogation and whatnot. Allahu a'lam. Any questions? No,
Yeah, I see it. Put it in a bottle, put it in the fridge, leave it there for like 3 days or. Make sure not to let go. Hopefully it's not. Yeah. This should be great. And tomorrow's 3 days. Yeah. It only was better. No, I don't. That's fine. You did it, but how did it? Page. Wait, I thought you were reading from that, the blue book. Yeah, the blue book, they keeps on switching, I don't know. Oh, it's just like, yeah, man, that's great. Okay, how are you? Oh, good. I'm right. It's not like that. First one is the first one.
Oh, so dua kali ya. Dua kali ya. Jangan ini. Dua kali ya. Everything is very simple. Okay.
Where it's not. It belongs to
No, no, I told you. I'll go like slow.
Yeah. I love it. Like, I love that. Yeah.
Wow.
Very, very good.
Okay, no. Yes.
Say anything about all the story.
They had, that's so creepy. I don't know why they they have. Yeah. Like you, I have never heard it. Yeah. Yeah.
Stop laughing, it's okay. I mean. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, like I, this, okay, we didn't get to the point that you want to be.
Did you open the window?
Yes, yes, I also get from the.
Okay, doesn't start. No, the Mecca one, my. This. So we can just. Next one. I don't know. This one. Okay, so. What would you actually say now? Start over the weekend. No, I don't think I have that. Look what we're gonna get. We're getting a long big line. I don't want to. Just talking about it's here for nobody. You did. Because what do you say? Because young, like,
You follow you.
No, we only lost 3 people.
Stop, man.
Well, you're actually, how much?
You line it up. You line it. So they finally never maybe they'll go back for a last thing. I'm not serious.
Okay, so maybe. Yeah, there's something to it, there is something.
Like, what would you do if you saw that? It's good.
Yeah.
What would you do if you saw him and looking at her?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, because I guess so, yeah.
No, I really know.
And so this.
What I do probably. Oh my. You listen to. Okay, obviously. Is that a right there? Yeah. So, you know, we have to stay here in Buffalo. I thought that I see that night. Yeah. What the? I don't care.
Why did you take him down?
Yeah, a lot of crazy stories with her. Very interesting. One time,
Typically is the best.
brother who was medically ill, they brought him to the house. Yeah, they brought him hard. The guy who read, and shit, he said, don't bring him to my, sit there, I want to get in trouble. With the security or
Just saying, not on.
Oh, it's so.
Yeah, why do you go crazy by it now? Why do you go crazy by it?
Nice.
No, I mean, how they, not specifically. They were in the same, what is it, elementary school?
Okay.
Not my grandfather, my mother. You were in the same primary, the same elementary school. That was back when you went back like a long like fourth, fifth grade. I'm gonna do it. I'm really excited. It's crazy because like, oh, my grandfather went. Oh, it's super. I mean, we're not proud of it. I'm just telling you the story. Yeah. I mean, seriously, serious story. I mean, no, stick bro. No, yeah. No, we have a house there. Okay, here's what I want.
So he's living there right now in the house. Is that empty? Like, yeah.
You shut up. You know that I'm guessing.
Oh,
Go on inside.
the house.
Now, yeah. Here's what I'm protecting you. I got it.
But, yeah, another guy.
Around the mall, like a little.
She was in a big place. We don't know.
The mall is big, yeah. Around the mall is getting over it. See, I mean, I, you know, it is. And this is. No, outside, I try.
Yeah, very surprised.
We're only allowed to stay in the West Lane. So you should stop. You should not right here. This is the West Lane.
You don't go to, yeah.
Is there even grandmother place? This is
We have to go to the.
come out. The 4,000. Because the last thing, not the. They can't find the area.
Well, I need to. I don't know. All types of work. What was it on? Symbolic? Yeah. Yeah. Huh? Oh, that's what.
Oh, is you know? And you used to have a.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. uh, Go ahead, Isa. بشرة.
بشر يبشر بشيرا فهو مبشر بشر يبشر تبشيرا فهو مبشر بشر لا تبشر مبشر
سلمى. عسرة.
عسر يعسر تعسيرا فهو معسر عسر يعسر تعسيرا
عسرة. عسرة.
عسر
نعم.
عسر لا تعسر تعسيرا
معسر.
معسر
سراج. حسن.
حسن يحسن تحسينا محسن
فهو محسن.
فهو محسن آه،
حسن.
محسنا يحسن تحسينا محسن
فهو محسن.
فهو محسن حسن
حسن.
حسن لا حسن فهو محسن.
نعم. طيب، عذب.
عذب يعذب تعذيبا فهو معذب عذب يعذب تعذيبا فهو معذب عذب لا تعذب معذب
أميرة. كبر.
كبيرا فهو مكبر كبر لا تكبر مكبر
عبد الرحمن. سبح.
سبح يسبح تسبيح تسبيحا فهو مسبح سبح يسبح تسبيحا فهو مسبح فهو مسبح سبح لا تسبح تسبح سبح سبح
مسبح. مسبح. جرانت. قتل.
قتل يقتل تقتيلا فهو مقتل قتل
قتل. نعم.
قتل يقتل تقتيلا فهو مقتل قتل لا تقتل مقتلون.
Good. سعد. فرق. دي جي. رتل. رتل.
قتل يرتل ترتيلا فهو مرتل رتل لا ترتل مرتل
بيان. ألف.
ألف يؤلف تفعيلا
تأليفا.
تأليفا فهو مؤلف مؤلف
ألف.
ألف يؤلف تأليفا فهو مؤلف ألف لا تؤلف مؤلف
ميشيل. نزل.
نزل ينزل تنزيلا فهو منزل نزل ينزل يمثل تع-
تنزيلا
تنزيلا فهو منزل نزل لا تنزل منزل
أم محمد مرديني خلق
خلق يخلق تخليقا فهو مخلق خلق يخلق تخليقا فهو مخلق
خلق
خلق خلق لا تخلق مخلق
مخلق مريم خضر شبه
شبه يشبه تشبيها فهو مشبه
شبه
شبه
يشبه
يشبه فهو مشبه
تشبيه
تشبيه فهو مشبه
شبه
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 شبه لا تشبه مشبه
أم،
مشبه
رامى شبه
شبه يشبه تشبيها فهو مشبه شبه يشبه تشبيها فهو مشبه شبه لا تشبه مشبه
وفق محمد فردين دي جي و مالك وفق توفيقا فهو موفق يوفق توفيقا
توفيقا فهو موفق ووفق لا توفق لا يوفق لا توفق وفق لا يوفق
لا توفق
لا توفق موفق.
good last one Grant you went already right just one more for بركة سلم
سلم يسلم تسليما فهو مسلم سلم يسلم تسليما فهو مسلم سلم لا تسلم مسلم
good طيب ضاعف
ضاعف يضاعف ضاعف يضاعف
يضاعف
جاهد يجاهد
عاقب
عاقب يعاقب عقابا ومعاقبة فهو معاقب أو قيل يعاقب عقابا ومعاقبة فهو معاقب عاقب لا تعاقب معاقب
good عيسى ضاعف
ضاعف يضاعف ضعافا ومضاعفة فهو مضاعف ضعف يضاعف ضعافا ومضاعفة فهو مضاعف ضاعف لا تضاعف مضاعف
good سلمى نافق نفاقا ينافق نفاقا منافق منافق أميرة حارب
ومحاربة فهو محارب ضرب يحارب إضرابا ومحاربة فهو محارب حارب لا تحارب محارب.
Amira, I saw your aunt this past weekend.
I was waiting.
She told you already. she's like, how's Amira doing? I was like, oh, she's doing well. She's like, I heard you give her a hard time. I said, oh, I heard you give her a hard time. Oh, I know Amira talks to her parents. I didn't know it reached all the way to her aunt. You got an issue. We can talk this out. There's no reason to make it a community matter. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Wait, I'm seeing how far this chain will go. Let's go. Yeah, Abdurrahman, باشر.
باشر يباشر تبشير بشر تبشير باشر يباشر بشار مباشرة فهو مباشر بشر يباشر تبشير
بشارا
بشار مباشرة فهو مباشر بشر لا تباشر
باشر
باشر لا تباشر مباشر
ها
مباشر
نعم. Grant حاسب
حاسب يحاسب حسابا ومحاسبة فهو محاسب حسب يحاسب حسابا ومحاسبة فهو محاسب حاسب لا تحاسب محاسب.
Good. سعد جادل رامة ناظر
ناظر يناظر نظارا ومناظرة فهو مناظر نوظر يناظر نظارا ومناظرة فهو مناظر ناظر لا تناظر مناظر
بيان عاقبة
عاقب يعاقب عقابا ومعاقبة فهو معاقب عوقب يعاقب عقابا ومعاقبة فهو معاقب عاقب لا تعاقب معاقب.
Good. عاتبة سراج
عاتب عاتب يعاتب
عتابا
عتابا ومعاتبة فهو معاتب
معاتب
معاتب عوتب
عوتب
عوتب يعاتب
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 عتابا
عتابا ومعاتبة فهو معاتب
تب
عاتب لا تعاتب معاتب.
Good. DJ ساعد مساعد سوعد
مساعد.
Good. محمد مرديني قاتل
قاتل قاتل قتالا ومقاتلة فهو مقاتل قتل يقاتل قتالا ومقاتلة فهو مقاتل
وهو مقاتل
فهو مقاتل قاتل لا تقاتل
مقاتلا مقاتل محمد فردين مريم خضر جالس
جالس يجالس
جلاسا
جلاسا فهو مجالس
جلاسا مجالسة
مجالسة
فهو
فهو مجالس
لس
هو مجالس يجالس no
Isa, take over.
Uh,
Jalasa, start from the beginning.
جالس يجالس جلاسا ومجالسة فهو مجالس. جلس يجالس جلاسا ومجالسة فهو مجالس. جالس لا يجالس مجالس.
Good. This is أفعل or أسلم. This is أفعل or أسلم. أسلم يسلم إسلاما فهو مسلم. أسلم يسلم إسلاما فهو مسلم. أسلم لا تسلم and مسلم. or أفعل يفعل إفعالا فهو مفعل. أفعل يفعل إفعالا فهو مفعل. أفعل لا تفعل and مفعل. Give it a few minutes, run it through. You can, if you memorize Aslama, then scroll down and look at drill 8 and put those words on the same pattern. All right, let's try it out. عيسى أخبر
أراد يخبر إخبارا
إخبارا
إخبارا فهو مخبر أخبر يخبر إخبارا فهو مخبر أخبر لا تخبر مخبر.
good. أميرة أعرض good. سلمى أخرج مخرج أخرج لا تخرج ها أم طيب أجلس
أجلس يجلس إجلاسا فهو مجلس أجلس يجلس إجلاسا فهو مجلس أجلس لا تجلس مجلس.
سراج أنزل
أنزل ينزل إنزالا فهو منزل أنزل ينزل إنزالا فهو منزل أنزل لا تنزل منزل.
good. رمى أردف
Can you repeat the word, please?
أردف أردف
أردف يردف إردافا فهو مرتف أردف يردف إردافا فهو مرتف أردف لا تردف مرتف.
good. Grant let's do this. أغرق
Say it again.
أغرق
أغرق يغرق إغراقا فهو
مغرق
مغرق أغرق يغرق إغراقا فهو مغرق مغرق. أغرق. What's my word again?
yeah أغرق you're
أغرق.
yeah so أغرق
أغرق لا تغرق مغرق مغرق.
سعد أنذر DJ أفسد
كيف سالم فهو مشترك
Good. Siraj, have you gone? You went. Muhammad Mardini, أقبل.
What is it?
أقبل.
أقبل
يقبل.
إقبالا فهو
مقبل.
مقبل
أقبل.
بلا يقبل إقبالا فهو
مقبل.
فهو
مقبل.
مقبل
أقبل.
أقبل لا تقبل فهو
No, just مقبل. ميشيل أفلح.
أفلح يؤلف
يفلح.
يفلح لا إفحالا
إفلاحا.
فهو مفلح
مفلح.
مفلح
أفلح.
أفلح يفلح إفلاحا فهو مفلح
إفلاح. أفلح.
أفلح لا تفلح مفلح.
Good. Tomorrow we'll have a very, very short quiz. Tomorrow we'll have a very, very short quiz. Tomorrow, unlike our other classes where we just have a quiz, tomorrow we'll have class, but we'll also have a quiz. Your quiz will cover basically family 2, 3, and 4, right? Of the verbs. Family two is allama. Family 2 is allama. Family 3 is jahada. And family 4 is aslama. Clear? So, or you could say family 2 is fa'ala, right? Family 3 is fa'ala, and family 4 is af'ala. I'll pick a word from each family, right? And you will have to do what we call the 3 lines that we've been doing is called the sarf saghir, right? Essentially the morphology of it, right? Actually just made the quiz while you guys were memorizing family 4. I mean, it was 1 page. All I had to do was, right? But yeah, it's essentially 3 questions, and each there's nothing else, no grammar, nothing. It's just literally that. It's 1 page. I'll give you a verb from family 2. Write the 3 lines out. Family 2. Write the 3 lines out. Family 3 and family 4. Understand? Straightforward, right? That is tomorrow, inshallah. Make sure you have them locked down, right? Vowel signs matter here. Vowel signs really, really matter here. Okay. Open up your Qasas al-Nabiyin books. Which section had we finished translating? Okay, we almost translate. Okay. Okay, so we're on section 2, right? Waladu azara means طيب. No, that's walid. That's what?
Son.
Yeah. Azar's son. Azar's son. Waladu azar. Azar's son. وكان آزر له ولد رشيد جدا. What is Amira? What does that mean?
And a guided child, a very good child.
Okay, so the word Rashidun in this context, right? We can use like intelligent. We could use mature, right? But وَكَانَ آزَرُ لَهُ وَلَدٌ رَشِيدٌ جِدًّا. That Azar had a very intelligent son, رشيد جدا, very, very intelligent. Good. So once again, وكان آزر له ولد رشيد جدا. That Azar had a intelligent son, very, very intelligent son.
Does lahu have to go there, or could it have went somewhere else?
In this sentence, this is the only place it could go. And we'll get to that in a second. We'll go back and do the i'rab of that sentence in a second. وكان اسم هذا الولد إبراهيم. عبد الرحمن.
And this boy's name was Ibrahim.
No. Start with ism.
And the name.
Yeah, and the name of
this boy
was
Ibrahim.
Naam. And the name of this boy was Ibrahim. وكان إبراهيم يرى الناس يسجدون للأصنام. مالك.
See the people prostrate to the statues.
Prostrating to the idols. And Ibrahim would see the people prostrating to the idols. You see how he translated it as would see, which indicates not just past tense, but indicates something that happened in the past consistently, right? He didn't say that he saw, he said he would see. The difference is the difference between the two clear? Yes?
And why is that?
Because
That's kana?
kana used with the present tense verb. When you have kana and a present tense verb come together, it indicates istimrar, some type of continuity, something that used to happen, right? As opposed to just using kana by itself. If you said something like kuntu maridan, means I was sick. After that, it says وَيَرَى النَّاسَ يَعْبُدُونَ الْأَصْنَامَ. Sa'ad? Yeah, and because it's a continuation, you can continue he would see, right? And he would see the people, worshipping the idols. وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَصْنَامَ حِجَارَةٌ. Siraj?
Ibrahim knew that the idols were stone.
Yeah, and Ibrahim knew that the idols were stones. وكان يعرف أن الأصنام لا تتكلم ولا تسمع. يا سلمى. Yeah. And he knew that over here, just because of English, you don't have to use used to. Like new kind of already indicates. And he knew that the idols لا تتكلم ولا تسمع, do not speak and do not hear. You've taken the word or the verb to hear. سمع يسمع. Yes? Okay. You see the verb before it, تتكلم, right? After some of you pass tomorrow's quiz, then we'll move on to the next family, and the next family is family 5, right? تتكلم is a verb form that is on family 5. Okay. Anyone can figure out what the past tense of تتكلم is? What?
تكلم.
تكلم. What's the pattern? What's the wazn? Huh? Yeah, تفعل. Just going back mentally. What was family 2? What's family 1? فعل. Family 1 is فعل. Technically it could be فعل, 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 right? But it's فعل, right? Family 2 is فعل. On the ain, right? فعل. What's family 3? فعل. Okay, alif after the fa. What's family 4? أفعل. What is it? أفعل. And then you don't have to memorize it now. But family 5 is going to be تفعل. You're going to put a ta, right? Essentially, family 5, listen, is family 2 with a ta at the beginning. Family 5 is family 2. What was family 2? فعل. Family 5 is family 2 with a ta at the beginning. تفعل. Okay, and that's how you end up with تفعل يتفعل or تكلم يتكلم.
How come they didn't just teach us all the patterns with fa'ayn and them? Is it not easier that way?
What do you mean?
Like family 2, family 3, they use different letters.
Oh, it is a way of teaching, right? So you associate certain verbs with it, and then you just kind of plug and play. Certain people might have a hard time getting, like, it may be easier to memorize علم يعلم تعليما جاهد يجاهد as opposed to memorizing فعل يفعل تفعيلا فاعل يفعل. Like you'll get all the fa'ains and lambs, they'll all just get meshed together. Then after that it says وكان يعرف أن الأصنام لا تضر ولا تنفع. Bayan means
what was the line? I'm sorry.
وكان يعرف أن الأصنام لا تضر ولا تنفع.
And he knew that the idols didn't do anything or
لا تضر.
they didn't harm or they weren't useful.
Benefit.
They had no benefit.
Yeah. No, not they did not benefit, meaning they did not bring benefit. Okay. So وكان يعرف أن الأصنام لا تضر ولا تنفع, and he knew that the idols, they do not harm and they do not benefit. Have you taken نفع ينفع?
Yes.
Yes? نفع ينفع. Okay. I'm assuming you haven't taken the verb before it, right? ضر يضر. Okay. ضر يضر. The reason you haven't taken ضر يضر, which means to harm, which is technically family 1, is because within family 1 there are some categories that are a little more complex, and this is one of them. Because if you think about ضر يضر, how many letters is it? It's 3. It's 3. The ra is doubled up, right? It's 3, right? But because it's leveled up, it's called muda'afun. It's a verb. It's a family 1 verb that's muda'afun, right? Where one letter gets doubled up, right? Like the verb to perform hajj, the verb to perform hajj is hajja. Hajja yahujju, right? So a lot of these verbs get pushed towards the end, okay? But ضر يضر means to harm, and نفع ينفع means to benefit, very commonly used as opposites. And he knew that the idols do not harm and they do not benefit. If you notice in that line, as well as the line above, all of the verbs are conjugated in what conjugation, DJ? Yeah, which conjugation, which pronoun conjugation is he using? Salma? Yeah, it's using the hiya conjugation. It's using the hiya feminine conjugation because it's talking about non-intellectual plurals. It's talking about idols. Good. وكان يرى أن الذباب يجلس على الأصنام فلا تدفع. أميرة؟
That fly would sit on the idols. I don't know.
فلا تدفع, and the idols would not تدفع, they would not push them, meaning they would not push them away, they would not repel them. So it says وكان يرى أن الذباب, and he would see that the fly or flies is a concept. يجلس على الأصنام, would sit on the idols. فلا تدفع, and the idols would not push them away, would not repel. وكان يرى الفأر يأكل طعام الأصنام فلا تمنع. يا مالك.
You would see the rats eat the food of the idols.
Yeah, the idols' food. فلا تمنع. Yeah, it wouldn't prevent. The idols would not prevent. So وكان يرى الفأر يأكل طعام الأصنام, that he would see the mouse or the rat eating the food of the idols. فلا تمنعوا, and the idols would not be able to prevent or stop. وكان إبراهيم يقول في نفسه, and Ibrahim يقول في نفسه, meaning he would say to himself, لماذا يسجد الناس للأصنام? Isa?
Ibrahim would say to himself, why do these people
Why do the people?
why do these people prostrate to the idols?
Why do the people prostrate to the idols? And then on the following page, there's one more line. وكان إبراهيم يسأل نفسه لماذا يسأل الناس الأصنام? عبد الرحمن? Why do the people ask the idol? Now, and Ibrahim would ask himself, why do the people ask, meaning why do they make dua, why do they ask the idols? Any questions about the translation? Not the grammar, just the translation. No? Okay, good. Now, go back to it. Waladu azara. Waladu azara. Azar's son. What type of construction is that, ya Tayyib?
It is an idafa construction.
It is an idafa construction. It is an idafa construction. Waladu is the mudaf and azar is the mudafun ilay. Why does our mudafun ilay have a fatha, Tayyib?
Because Azara is mamnu'un min as-sarf.
Because it is mamnu' min as-sarf. Perfect. Okay. وَكَانَ أَزَرُ لَهُ وَلَدٌ رَشِيدٌ رَشِيدٌ جِدًّا. That Azar had a very intelligent boy, had an intelligent son, very intelligent. Okay. Let's analyze وَكَانَ أَزَرُ لَهُ وَلَدٌ رَشِيدٌ. Right? We said kana. Kana is from the category known as kana wa akhawatuha. Kana and its sisters. Kana is a verb or a harf? Is kana a verb or a harf? Huh? It's a verb. It's a verb. Good. Azaru. Azaru. What is the i'rab of Azaru, ya Isa?
It's ismu kana.
شيء طيب
بضمتي
بالضمة yeah. آزر اسم كان آزر اسم كان مرفوع بالضمة له ولد رشيد له go ahead يا أميرة له
متعلق. Do you still have to say it?
Huh?
I have to say that it's the muta'alliq.
Final answer?
Oh.
So the lam is a harfu jar, right? And the ha is a dhamir muttasil, right? Okay. 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 مرف. No. I give you a hard time.
I was just asking. I didn't get to finish about that. You have to say Al-Kana or no?
I mean, just give me your answer.
Okay. Okay.
Selma, you have anything? مسام متعلق بالخبر مقدم اوكي ولد anyone figure out what's going on here?
Yeah.
Huh? مفعول? No. طيب.
The entire sentence is the
What?
له ولد رشيد, the entire thing is the khabar, which in it's a sentence, but it's khabar of kana.
Okay, so he said له ولد رشيد is a sentence by itself, and it's the khabar of kana. Okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. So let's do
Sorry.
Oh, you're not used to hearing that. Not at home or nor in the classroom. Okay, so do lahu waladun rashidun. Do lahu waladun.
له ولد رشيد.
Do lahu.
له حرف جر and ضمير متصل. You want to do the whole ضمير؟
I mean, if you started, I was gonna go with متعلق بالخبر, but you.
متعلق بالخبر. ولد.
Hold on, you're not done. متعلق بالخبر.
متعلق بالخبر مقدم. ولد is مبتدأ مؤخر.
Good.
رشيد is the خبر. رشيد is the ولد رشيد. Oh, is the مضاف إليه. No, it's not. It's not.
I have to delete your right part from the recording now. You took it too early. You got too excited. That's like the easiest part. Look, they match.
ولد رشيد. Oh, it's the I was thinking Rashid anyways. It's the صفة.
It's a sifa, right? Sifatun marfu'un, right? So once again, lahu, right? The lam is a harfu jar. The ha is a damirun muttasilun mabniyun fi mahalli jarrin. The ha, right? And then lahu, all of it, that's the muta'alliq bil khabar, right? And it's muqaddam. Waladun is mubtada'un mu'akharun. And rashidun is sifatun, right? And then lahu waladun rashidun, all of that is the khabar of kana. Technically, yeah, you could, technically you would say the jumla ismiya lahu waladun rashidun is the fi mahalli nasbin khabaru kana. It's in the position of nasb. Yes.
Can you repeat the meaning of Azam?
The meaning of it?
Yeah.
It's a name.
Oh, it's a name?
Yeah. Good about the grammar? Yes? Okay. Then it says, وَكَانَ اسْمُ هَذَا الْوَلَدِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. This should be a little easier. وَكَانَ اسْمُ هَذَا الْوَلَدِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. The name of this boy was Ibrahim. Rama, go ahead from ismu.
Ismu is the ism of kana.
What state is it in?
Oh, اسم كان مرفوعا.
Good. اسم كان مرفوع. هذا.
هذا is the مضاف إليه.
Good. It's a مضاف إليه, right?
And then الولد is the مشار إليه مجرور.
Yeah. مشار إليه مجرور. Good.
And then إبراهيم is the خبر كان. Oh no, Ibrahim is.
You're right. Just give me the state.
Oh, Ibrahim is the khabar of kana mansooban.
Good. She said ismu is the ism of kana marfu'un بالضمة. هذا is an ismu ishara and it's في محل جر. It's what? في محل جر, in a position of jar because it's the مضاف إليه. Abdul Rahman al-Waladi is what? Give me the state. Bil. بثبوت No, you were gonna say that. Bil. There we go. مشار إليه مجرور بالكسرة and إبراهيم. عبد الرحمن. سراج. DJ. بال خبر كان منصوب بالفتحة. Question?
Yeah, could you explain just how I think you mentioned in the last class that kana requires something mansoob or something like that?
Yeah, so basically kana is a verb. So inna wa akhawatuha are huruf. Kana and its sisters are af'al. They're verbs, right? There's a difference and there's similarities, right? One difference is those are huruf, these are af'al. Similarity is that they both require an ism and they both require a khabar, right? Similarity. Difference is that the ism of kana is going to be marfu' and its khabar is going to be mansub, which is the opposite of inna wa akhawatuha. Their asma, right, are mansub, and their khabars are marfu', and kana is switched, right? So for example, you would say inna allaha qadirun, or inna allaha ghafurun, and you would say kana allahu ghafuran.
And so Jiddan is the
No, so Rashidun Jiddan is just something else.
it's an adverb.
Yeah.
So there was no mansub in the first sentence.
So the lahu waladun Rashidun, that entire sentence is the khabar of kana. And when you have something that's an entire sentence, right? Then that entire sentence by itself cannot intrinsically take a state, but it can in a position be in a state. Remember, guys, when we covered the different types of khabars? Yeah, we said there's a khabar mufrad, right? So you, for example, you say al-kitabu jadidun, right? Jadidun is in what state? Marfu'un, right? But then if you say, if you said Ahmadu yal'abu, right? Ahmad is the mubtada, right? The khabar is what? The khabar is the verbal sentence yal'abu. The khabar is the verbal sentence yal'abu. So we'd say that verbal sentence is in a position of rafa. Make sense?
Yeah, so in the first sentence, like in the future, we could just look at kana, we see that there's no mansubun, and then that could be like a hint.
Yeah.
Okay.
That there's no mansubun, that hey, I gotta look for something else.
There's Kana is there.
So he was trying to figure out where is the mansub over here. As in, huh? It can be a sentence. If it's a sentence, it's not going to be apparently mansub, right? But if it's a word, like one word, then it is going to be mansub, like Ibrahima, right? Or if I said, for example, وَكُنْتُ مَرِيضًا, I was sick, right? Maridan is your khabar over here. But once again, if it's some type of prepositional phrase or muta'alliq bil khabar, right? You may not see it apparently. After that, it says وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَرَى النَّاسَ يَسْجُدُونَ لِلْأَصْنَامِ, and Ibrahim would see the people prostrating to the idols. Yeah, Grant, Ibrahimu.
Ismu kana.
Bid. Bid-dammati. Dammati, good. No, because something could be marfu' with a dhamma, something could be marfu' with an alif, something could be marfu' with a waw, something, right? So Ibrahim marfu'un bid-dhammati. Yara is what? What is yara? Yeah, it's a fi'lun. Once again, you haven't taken ra'a yara, right? The reason you haven't taken it, it's family one, but it's special category. Is it muda'af where a letter is repeated? No, but what it's basically, it has a weak letter at the end. And because it has a weak letter at the end, they function a little differently. So therefore, you haven't taken them yet, right? But ra'a yara means to see, right? But ra'a yara can also, they say it's from the, like, a lot of times it's used in the Arabic language as one of the actions of the heart, right? So for example, the ra'a yara can be to consider, you know, for example, when you say something like, I don't see that as the right opinion. Is that see? That's not see, that's consider and think, right? Or even if you say, like, if I explain the i'rab to Grant right now, right? And he said, yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it. He's not necessarily talking about seeing, he's just talking about understanding. So ra'a, yara is also used like that. Can be see, can be consider, think, right? All of those things. وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَرَى النَّاسِ, and Ibrahim would see the people, يَسْجُدُونَ لِلْأَصْنَامِ, prostrating to the people. النَّاسِ, what is the i'rab of النَّاسِ? What is the i'rab of النَّاسِ, ya Isa?
It's khabar.
Siraj?
No, it's maf'ul bihi.
What is it?
Maf'ul bihi.
Keep going.
Nasbun or
مفعول به منصوب.
bil fathah.
Good. It's مفعول به منصوب بالفتحة, right? It's what Ibrahim would see, correct? And what would he see? He would see the people يسجدون, prostrating. للأصنام. Lam is harf jar. Al-asnam is the majroor. The jar and the majroor, right? Now, Ibrahim was the khabar of Kana, was the ism of Kana, right? What's the khabar of Kana? It's the entire thing. And Ibrahim would see the people prostrating to the idols. That entire thing, Yara nasa yasjudun al-Islam, that entire verbal sentence is the khabar of Kana. Good?
I think up until now, every time we covered a verb, it was in Jumlatun Fi'lun Fi'lun. I think this is one of the first times, at least I remember seeing the verb and like pointing it out and giving it a name within the Jumlatun Ismiyatun. Would we just say Fi'lun and keep going?
Sorry, say it again.
So we've covered verbs like Fi'lun, Fa'ilun in a Jumlatun Fi'liyatun.
Correct.
But I don't remember doing it in a Jumlatun Ismiyatun.
Covering a fi'l, I get what you're saying. So to make things simple, right? We did yara, we said fi'lun, right? I skipped over the i'rab of it because it's a weak verb. I purposely didn't go over fa'il, right? But where is the fa'il here? In yara nasa, where is the fa'il? Huh? The ya is the fa'il?
It's what, yeah, inside.
Is it Ibrahim or is it inside? It's inside. Right? It's technically the person Ibrahim, but it's not the word Ibrahim because the fa'il can never come before the fi'l. The fa'il can never come before the fi'l. So the fa'il, where is it? It's inside the word yara. Anyone remember the phrasing for that? Damirun mustatirun. Damirun mustatirun. The fa'il over here is a verb. Sorry, is a doer that's built inside the verb, right? It's the huwa conjugation. And then an-nas is your maf'ulun bihi. Make sense? Right? وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَرَى النَّاسِ يَسْجُدُونَ الْأَصْنَامِ, and Ibrahim would see the people prostrating to the idols. So I don't lose you, just take a 5-minute break and then we'll continue for about 20 minutes. Some people were focusing now. You were just focusing.
What did you do in the break?
What did I do? I don't know. I traveled on Sunday. I had to go one day to Arizona. And then I missed my flight back.
Which day did you miss your flight?
Monday. It was what happened was I left Sunday morning. I downloaded the boarding pass. Then Sunday night, I'm like, planning the next morning. I gotta be at the airport. I like to plan, So I'm looking at the thing, boarding pass, I'm like 9:10. It was like 9:10 a.m. And then I turn in the rental car, and I get out of the rental car. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, let me pull up the boarding pass to see what term it is, right? Well, no, this is yesterday's boarding pass. Let me pull up today's boarding pass. I'm like, why don't I have today's downloaded? So I downloaded the date boarding pass. Dude, all of last night I was looking at, like, I timed everything based on yesterday's boarding pass. So the boarding time was 9:10. And when I pull up the new boarding pass, it's 8:45. And I'm like, it's 8:45 right now. So I turn in the rental and I start, it's Arizona, right? So I turn in the rental, there's a tram to take within the airport. And I'm like, I'm timing it. I'm like, look, if everything goes smoothly, I have TSA free, I'll get it. Because I have 15 minutes to get onto the plane, right? The plane.
What's your rundown?
So I'm on the tram. I'm timing it. I'm like, I'll make it. I'll still make it. Like it's close. It's gonna be close, but I'll make it. And while I'm on the tram, I get a phone call. Arizona. There you go. I'm like, who's calling Arizona right now? And I'm like, I pick up, they're like, sir, did you just turn in your rental? And I'm like, yeah. Like, we can't find the keys. And as soon as he said that, I felt the keys in my lower pocket. And as soon as I got that phone call, I knew it was early. So I had to get off at the next stop. Exactly. We go to the next stop, drop off the keys, get back on the tram. When I get back on the tram, I'm certain. I know it was Southwest. I call Southwest. And I saw the flight was like, to get onto the next flight, it was like 350. Right. And I told them, like, guys, I just had a rough morning. Time things wrong. And she put me on the next flight for free.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
how far out was next flight?
Two and a half hours. It was, you know.
So it's
there
like,
was-
it sounds cool, I'm gonna buy it, so people. He's planning to lower some of you.
Chill. Wednesday, I got some like weird stomach flu. I was in bed all day. Like I'm never in bed all day.
Some people do it.
I say once every couple of years. Like I get in bed all day. Dude. It was really nice.
Right for the semester, the whole year.
Hmm.
Sheikh, can you please unmute?
Amira just had a really long question I was answering. Besides that. Okay. So لا تسمعوا, لا تنفعوا, لا تدفعوا, and لا تمنعوا, right? All of those lams are called لام النافية. That first is just the letter lam spelled out. But لام النافية, which translates as the lam of negation. Lam of negation has no grammatical effect on the verb. The lam of negation has no grammatical effect on the verb. To negate. To cancel out. As opposed to the other one is called لام الناهية. The lam of prohibition, which makes the verb majzub. Up. Clear? So when you guys were memorizing like the sarfun saghir, the aslama yuslimu islaman, right? That last line is the lamun nahiya. That's the lamun nahiya, right? La tu'allim, la tujahid, la tuslim. Good. And then it says, going back to the text, وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَقُولُ فِي نَفْسِهِ, and Ibrahim would say to himself, لِمَاذَا يَسْجُدُ النَّاسُ لِلْأَصْنَامِ, why do the people prostrate to the idols? Sa'ad, why is النَّاسُ مرفوع? Right there. وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَقُولُ فِي نَفْسِهِ لِمَاذَا يَسْجُدُ النَّاسُ لِلْأَصْنَامِ. عبد الرحمن, why is الناس مرفوع? سلمى. عيسى.
فاعل مرفوع بالضمة.
Good. فاعل مرفوع بالضمة. فاعل مرفوع بالضمة. Right? وكان إبراهيم يسأل نفسه, when Ibrahim would ask himself, لماذا يسأل الناس الأصنام? Grant once again, الناس
فاعل مرفوع بالضمة.
الأصنام
the last word. متعلق بالخبر.
What? الأصنام. الأصنام, not the second to last. The last line.
The last. So that's that's the مفعول به. مفعول بال
فتحتي. فتحتي. نعم. فتحتي. No. فتحتي. فتحتي. There we go. بالفتحة.
You know the lamb that's like, I don't know if you took this yet or not, but for example, like Riyubayinu, or it's a lamb that comes before a word. I don't know what it really does, but it's just always there. It's like two. Does that one have a name?
Yeah, it's called لام التعليل.
تعليل التعليل.
تعليل. But that's the one that comes before verbs. Right? You took it with Sheikh Aisha. أن, لن, لكي, حتى, إذن. Yeah? Was that mentioned?
What?
لام التعليل. Yeah?
DK.
Huh?
Yeah.
No, but was the word التعليل mentioned? And what does it mean? To give reason, cause, justification, right? Yeah, so that's called لام التعليل. Okay. Amira, read نصيحة إبراهيم.
كان إبراهيم يقول لوالده يا أبي لماذا تعبد هذه الأصنام؟ ويا أبي لماذا تسجد لهذه الأصنام؟ ويا أبي لماذا تسأل هذه الأصنام؟ إن هذه الأصنام لا تتكلم ولا تسمع وإن هذه الأصنام لا تضر ولا تنفع
ولي
لها الطعام والشراب وإن هذه الأصنام يا أبي لا تأكل ولا تشرب وكان آزر يغضب ولا يأكل وكان إبراهيم ينصح لقومه وكان الناس يغضبون ولا يفهمون قال إبراهيم أنا أكسر الأصنام إذا ذهب الناس وحينئذ يفهم الناس.
نصيحة إبراهيم, Salma means? Yeah, the advice of Ibrahim, the sincere advice of Ibrahim. What type of construction is that, yeah, Salma? Yeah, it's an إضافة construction. وكان إبراهيم يقول لوالده طيب.
And Ibrahim
would
talk to his father.
Would say
to his father.
Would say to his father, يا أبي لماذا تعبد هذه الأصنام? Isa?
Oh father, oh my father, why do you worship these idols?
Oh my father, why do you worship these idols?
Is walidi father?
Yeah, so waladun is son, walidun is father, walidatun is mother. Oh my father, why do you worship these idols? Amira, the i'rab of هذه.
اسم إشارة
مبني
في محل نصب مفعول به.
Good, one more time.
اسم إشارة.
So ismu ishara, the type of word that it is, that is non-flexible, if that is in a position of nasb, because it's playing the role of the maf'ulun bihi. Continue, do the next word. Yeah.
That's for هذه.
That's for هذه. Then do, yeah.
مشار إليه منصوب
مشار إليه منصوب بالفتحة. مشار إليه منصوب بالفتحة. يا أبتي, right, is a form that shows a higher level of endearment. Ya Abi is simply my father, oh my father. Ya Abati is like, oh my dear beloved father. ويا أبي لماذا تسجد لهذه الأصنام? Oh my father, why do you prostrate to these idols? Right? Do you see how the lamb over there, right? The lamb has affected al-asnam, right? In the first sentence without the lamb, it was al-asnama. And then in this sentence with the lamb, al-asnami. هذه obviously remains unaffected, right? Because it's mabniyun, right? But because al-asnam in both sentences is the musharun ilay, it's going to be affected by anything that comes before هذه. So in this sentence, li هذه al-asnam, right? Al-asnami is still the musharun ilay, but it is majrurun bil kasra.
Was the lamb needed with the verb?
Yes, because you wouldn't be able to say prostrate to. To prostrate to these idols, you need that lamb. وَيَا أَبِي لِمَاذَا تَسْأَلُ هَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامَ. The PDF is wrong. See, it says وَيَا أَبِي لِمَاذَا تَسْأَلُ هَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ me.
Okay, so when she was reading it, I was losing my mind, because I was like, I'm hearing something but seeing something else. I thought
You were looking here.
I was looking at the PDF.
Oh, you're looking at the PDF. Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's math for both of them.
It's what?
It has to have a fatha, right?
Just this one. You said both of them.
For the test.
You said both of them. I don't
Yeah.
know both of them.
Sorry, what line are we correctly?
This one. لماذا تسأل هذه الأصنام? So it goes أصنام أصنامي أصنام in the 3 lines. Yes? طيب? Yeah? أصنام أصنامي, and then this one should be أصنام.
The third one.
Yeah.
Okay.
وَيَا أَبِي لِمَاذَا تَسْأَلُ هَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامَ? Oh, my father, why do you ask these idols? Right? هذه is once again playing the role of the مفعول به. إِنَّ هَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامَ لَا تَتَكَلَّمُ وَلَا تَسْمَعُ. That indeed these idols, Isa, لَا تَتَكَلَّمُ وَلَا تَسْمَعُ.
These idols do not speak and they do not hear.
They do not speak and they do not hear. وَإِنَّ هَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامَ لَا تَضُرُّ وَلَا تَنْفَعُ. Siraj, and indeed these idols, they do not harm nor benefit. وَلِأَيِّ شَيْءٍ تَضَعُ لَهَا الطَّعَامَ وَالشَّرَابَ. وَلِأَيِّ شَيْءٍ literally means and for what thing. And for what thing. But the idea behind it is and for what reason. For what reason. تَضَعُ, you haven't taken this verb, which is وَضَعَ يَضَعُ, which means to put. وَضَعَ يَضَعُ. The reason you haven't taken it, once again, family one, but special because it starts with a waw. Okay? And for what reason do you put or even place لها for them الطعام والشراب. الطعام is food and sharab is drink. وإن هذه الأصنام يا أبي لا تأكل ولا تشرب. طيب. And indeed هذه الأصنام
these idols
يا أبي, oh my father, لا تأكل, they do not
eat or nor drink.
They do not eat or drink. وكان آزر يغضب ولا يفهم. Grant.
Azar, he was angry.
He would get
angry and did not understand.
And would not understand. Yeah. And Azar would get angry and not understand. What's the past tense, Amira, of getting angry? Getting angry. Have you taken the verb?
Yeah.
ماضي مضارع مصدر. غضبا. غضب يغضب غضبا. غضب يغضب غضبا. And to understand, عبد الرحمن. ماضي مضارع مصدر. فهم يفهم فهما. Yes?
We did that word?
No? Oh, you did it? Oh, okay. Well, now you did. وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَنْصَحُ لِقَوْمِهِ. And Ibrahim would give advice to his people. Have you done ينصح? Yes. سلمى ماضي مضارع مصدر. نصح ينصح نصيحة. وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَغْضَبُونَ وَلَا يَفْهَمُونَ. And the people would get angry and would not understand. Grant, again, to get angry, ماضي مضارع مصدر. Good. And to understand, Siraj? Fahima. Good. قال إبراهيم. Ibrahim said, أنا أكسر الأصنام إذا ذهب الناس. That I will. Have you done كسر يكسر? Okay. So كسر يكسر means to break. Stay with me. من كسر الأصنام. Okay. أنا أكسر الأصنام. I will break the idols. إذا ذهب الناس. When the people go. When the people go. وحينئذ. And then, meaning like at that time, at that moment, يفهم الناس. People will understand. Good. We'll stop here.
Combination
Is it a combination of? No, it's a word by itself. تضع to put or to place. The verb is وضع يضع. Guys, quiz tomorrow, huh? علم جاهد أسلم. Not those verbs, but those families. Assalamu alaikum.